doesn't have a meeting link. And we got Commissioner Briscoe. Okay, it looks like all three commissioners are here. If anyone would like to make public comment, please make yourself known. Commissioner Bell, we don't have anyone in the admin building wishing to make comment, and it doesn't look like anyone online is either. Can they not hear me? Can you guys not hear me? No.
February 2nd, Port of Bellingham Commission meeting. Everybody present? Rob, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. Carrie, are you with us?
I'm here.
I have a bit of an echo, but I'll work through it.
So, Commissioner, we don't have anyone signed up for public comment here in the admin building. I'm not sure if you made a call for the online or not. We were having trouble with the audio.
No, I will do that now. We first established that all commissioners are present. Commissioner Shepard.
I'm here.
Commissioner Briscoe.
Here.
Commissioner Bell is here. All the commissioners are accounted for. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, we'd like to do that at this juncture. If anybody has anything that they would like to say to the commission.
Could I interrupt, Ken?
Sure.
Please. Did we close the executive session? Because I didn't, maybe I missed that.
No, you didn't miss it.
Okay, I just don't want to continue without doing it.
I'm going to open the public meeting and immediately recess the executive session. And the purpose of the executive session was to discuss potential litigation and real estate transactions pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101C. We now close the executive session and open the public meeting, and we've done roll call, and now we'll ask for any public comment. Anybody have anything to say to the commission? Going once, going twice, sold. So we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve
Sarah,
consent
do you want to do
agenda.
this or should I?
Go for it.
Can you not hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay. Motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Commissioner Briscoe, anything to say?
No, nothing's jumped out at me. No?
Mr. Shepard?
Nope, I'm fine to proceed.
Me as well.
Aside from my echo, that is.
Can you see me okay, or do I have a lot of glare?
Oh, no,
no, we can see you fine.
you've
Okay,
never
very
looked at her, Bobby.
Very good.
Okay, I'll reread the
Okay,
motion.
no-
Motion to approve
no
consent
commissioner
agenda
comment?
items A through F.
Yeah, you have to wait for me to unmute you.
Oh,
That's where the echo is. I think Zoom's having problems with an echo today. We've had this occur in a couple different meetings.
okay, I'll read it again. Motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell is also yes. Now we're going to move on to presentations. We've got our financial and our obligatory joke of the day from Tamara Sobjack.
Thanks, Commissioner. I actually forgot to think of a joke, so
I'll send you one.
lame. Oh, that's perfect.
Hey, you can forget the financials, but not the joke, okay?
Yeah. Let me try to figure out how to share my screen here real quick. Okay, good.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Tamara Sobjack, CFO, Port of Bellingham. We've got the financial results for, it's not just Q4 2020, but it's the whole year. And then some other quarterly reporting items. And we'll start with those items. Maybe. What's going on? Oops, my goodness. Okay, stormwater program, the fourth quarter, all training and record keeping are in compliance. The airport permit, all sample results were within permit limits. And then at the shipping terminal, we had one location that exceeded the benchmarks for turbidity and total suspended solids, but those responses have been completed per the permit requirements.
Any feel for what caused the solids?
I don't. I wonder if Brian knows, but this is the same location that consistently exceeds benchmarks.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Tamara. This is Brian Gowron, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. Just a quick one on that one, Commissioner. It's in a problem spot where often we get turbidity from the rock call out, and the rocks are heavy. They come in and then they stir up some turbidity, and it just takes a little bit of extra attention. So it's something we're tracking, and that's what we usually attribute it to, and we are able to respond in accordance.
And the suspended solids are all naturally occurring.
Right.
Okay.
Brian, what is that solid? Can you tell me what it is?
It's just turbidity. I mean, total suspended solids and turbidity are closely related. So the gravel gets stirred up from moving the material around. It goes into the area, and it's just it's a gravel lot. So that's what you end up seeing. So it's just attributed to the rock movement and the gravel surfacing.
So it's gravel and dirt. It's not anything bad. It's just gravel and dirt.
That's right.
Because the way it's written out here and it's talked about, it's like, okay, we got something leaching into the water, but it's gravel and dirt. It's the earth.
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
So the accountant in the group alarms with the environmental stuff. Perfect. Public records requests, we had just 97 in 2020, down quite a bit from 2019. I'm guessing people had something else on their mind last year. Staff hours it did require a lot of staff time to respond to these requests. 2 of the 97 requests required at least 100 hours of staff time each. And one of those requests remains open. And so we'll see if 2021 looks like 2020.
100 hours.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Wow. Oh, 2021's an election year. Come on.
Well, what were the 2 big ones, Tamara?
Yeah, so there was one big one at the beginning of the year at the airport regarding some security footage. I don't know the exact details, but that was a major request. And then the second one that's ongoing is a request from an insurance carrier for environmental records.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so here's a good news slide. We had only one recordable injury in 2020. That incident rate is at 1.12, and that's the lowest that we've seen since at least 2008. And I say at least 2008 because that's when we started tracking these things. And then 2 notable items in Blaine, we've been accident-free since at least 2010. Again, that's when we started tracking the accident rate in Blaine. And then the airport has been accident-free since 2017. So I just wanted to remark that those locations have been very, very diligent with their safety program. We still have only one open claim for the port. It's the same one I keep reporting quarter after quarter. This windstorm a few years ago, we're still awaiting final paperwork from the carrier. We expect it any day for the past several months. So looks like insurance carriers move slower than government. And then open claim against the port again, it's just the one open, the Blaine's sawtooth slip and fall a few years ago, and our carrier and legal team are handling that. So moving on to the financial results. Again, these are preliminary results. Most things are in. I don't expect big swings either way. but again, this is preliminary. This is port-wide revenue. So the far left columns are revenues, and that's actual budget and prior year. And then you have the middle columns are expenses, and then the right columns are the net. So revenues came in about 3 million under what we expect or what we planned, which we, no surprise, right? And expenses also came in under budget. So as we saw revenues decline, we took a hard look at our expenses and really reined those in. So at the end of the year, we came in at just under $5 million in net operating, and we had budgeted 4.7. So overall, quite well. Drilling in, this is the aviation division. We had budgeted at $6.7 million. This was before the pandemic hit. It was, we budgeted in November of 2019, and then revenues came in at 3.4 million. Again, not a surprise. We know why, we know how. But expenses also came in at well under budget at 4.3 million as opposed to 6 million. What I'm not showing on this slide are the relief funds from the CARES Act. We were awarded 5 million, as you know, and we've received 4.8 of that 5 million so far. So you could actually add that to the revenues and see that that in 2020 the airport came out okay. So we are hopeful for 2021. The Marinas division budgeted just over 8.8 million and came in at $9 million. So again, that division did really not see a blip at all. Expenses came in right as we expected. One thing to note here is that while our revenues are at budget or above, we are seeing our customers paying a little bit slower. Our accounts receivable in the Marinas division is a little higher than normal. And so we're keeping in contact with those customers, setting up any payment plans that they need, and just working really closely to make sure that we stay on top of it. Looking at the cruise terminal, again, really didn't see a blip. Budgeted 1.7 in revenues, and that's what we brought in. 800,000 in expenses against a budget of 1.1. The decrease in cost there are really due to advertising, repair and maintenance, groundskeeping. When spring hit, we didn't know what was going to happen, so we really reined those costs in and just made sure that we were prepared in case our revenues came in lower than expected. And as far as the shipping terminal goes, we did budget to net about zero. So those middle columns, 900,000 in revenues to 900,000 in expenses. And although our revenues didn't come in as expected, we still netted about the same. So we were able to keep those costs variable enough to come in around net zero. The real estate division. So we budgeted 6.5 and that's where they are. And in prior years, I would just expect, yes, the real estate division does everything it says it's going to do. This year, I thought it was a little bit of a surprise. I'm hoping that this is an indication that our tenants are faring well. The deferral program we offered was used very little. So probably about under $250,000 was deferred. So a small percentage of those businesses took advantage of that plan. And as far as the receivables go here, most of our tenants are paying as agreed and on time. So no real concerns there.
And Tamara, when you say deferred about 250,000, was that the correct number?
Yeah.
And is that deferred and we're still expecting those to be repaid back, or are those deferred and they're going as a write down?
Those are deferred, expected to be paid back. So we put that due date a year from now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'd just like to say thanks to our tenants for doing a chin-up job through the mess we've been in the last year and not abusing our deferred program. So thanks for that.
Thank you. So our overhead divisions are, it's really not variable costs. These are standard, predictable costs. It's the support and maintenance. It's, accounting, IT, HR, executive, all of those things. So I would expect those costs would be right at budget, and they were. Our waterfront district came in at almost $1.5 million to a $1.1 million budget, and that is because the F Street warehouse is at full occupancy now, and we did not budget for that, so that's great news. And then all other public, and this is where this is the revenues. This is where meetings and events lives. So in the spring, early spring, when people started having to cancel their events, we saw that we went from a $300,000 budgeted revenues down to $80,000 realized. As far as expenses go, we always budget conservatively in these divisions in case we need extra legal help or something like that. So we came in at 2.1 million in expenses, and it's better to compare it to prior year rather than budget. And prior year 2019 was 2.3, so very consistent there. Other items I just wanted to note, I talked already about the CARES relief funds. And then I wanted to mention that the grant money that was passed through the Port of Bellingham from the Department of Commerce directly to small businesses was about $600,000. So that was money that the port facilitated getting into the hands of our small community businesses.
Tamara, can I circle back to our PPP for just a sec? Did ours come in the form of grants, or did we get some of it grants, some of it loan?
I'm sorry, circle back to our what?
To the money we received directly as the port. This just brought up the question, how much of that money did we get as grant and how much did we get as a loan?
We didn't get PPP money, Commissioner. We got some CARES Act money for our airport, and that was 100% grant, not a loan at all. But we didn't participate in the PPP program.
That's what I meant. Okay, thanks.
Oh, and then also there was some relief funds that the county passed through to the port, and that was all grant, not loan.
And I'm sorry, and those were reimbursements for the Point Roberts Ferry, some staff time that spent time at Unified Command, some extra equipment that we had to buy to respond to the pandemic.
Right. We spent just over $2 million in environmental cleanup around the port, and then $7.5 million in scheduled capital projects. All of that leads to a pretty strong balance sheet. In December of 2019, we had net assets, which is assets minus liabilities, of about 265 million. Fast forward a year, December 2020, we have net assets of $283 million. That's a pretty big jump in 1 year, about $14 million, but recall about 12 million of that is due to a claim settlement for environmental cleanup projects. So while that hits our balance sheet and our bank account, that really is set aside for those environmental cleanups. So take that out of consideration, and we're about 2 million better than a year ago, which is very remarkable, seeing what we dealt with.
Commissioners, I really want to point out the drop in the liability, if we can go back to that slide, Tamara. We've steadily been decreasing our debt service for the last, probably 12 years, pretty consistently taking it down each year. So that puts us in a really good financial position to weather things like this pandemic and to have an emergency fund we can lean on if we need it.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have a lot of debt capacity. We have a strong cash reserve.
Is anybody else having trouble hearing Rob? I couldn't hear him very well there at all.
Yeah, Rob, you sound like you're
All right, is this better?
Yes, much better.
All right, I'm gonna have to take the mask off. Sorry, guys.
He kind of sounds like he's in witness protection or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I am.
This is where they send people when that happens.
Terrible. So that's all I have to report. Overall, I feel like a good report, a little surprising to me, to be honest, even though I'm a glass half full. But are there any questions, comments, anything you'd like further follow-up on?
Well, I'll take your surprise and double that. I'm, I'm just, I was anticipating a lot of red ink and unfortunate news here, but I'm just really impressed with how well we've been able to respond with cutting our expenses in a really volatile year. So they're really pleased, and I think we're seeing all that good work while we've still been able to really step up many of our types of responses that we've made for the community during this really challenging year. So it's not like we saw the storm and cut back everything and did less. We stepped up and did more this year, and we're still able to carry a strong financial sheet. So well done.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, you know, the war's not over. I think 2021 is going to be a challenge as well. So we're going to need to keep to stay diligent.
Yeah.
When we get an environmental settlement like we got, does that 14 million stay in cash?
You're echoing really bad, Ken.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you at all.
So when we get an environmental settlement like the one we got, how do you book that? Do you book that as cash, or how does that go on your books?
Yeah, so we actually received a stack of checks. So that's cash, and then it goes as non-operating revenue claim settlement. And then I track that separately under the environmental division.
Okay. I noticed too, we're in a pretty strong cash position, and that's healthy.
Commissioner, it should be noted that we carry 100% of those liabilities on our books long before we get those settlements. So the settlement may improve our cash position. It may look like we're in a better financial position than we were prior to getting that cash, but we put the liability on our books at some point in time, and that made our balance sheet worse.
Yeah.
All this being said, you know, we're all a bit surprised we're as healthy as we are right now. We're not out of the woods by any means yet. 2021, as Tamara said, could be a bad year, but right now we're full speed ahead on all the projects that the commission has approved, and we don't anticipate coming back to you for any changes.
Well, I can say I'm not real surprised, because I think we've got a great staff. We've got a good commission. We've got great people in this county. And if you let your foot off the gas and falter, you'll fall behind. But I think this proves the point. You keep your foot on the gas, take the precautions necessary to keep everybody safe, but keep moving ahead. And I believe what we see with this financial report warrants that. That is what we did.
Okay, Commissioner Shepherd, anything else? Commissioner Briscoe?
Nope.
No, I have nothing, except it was a good presentation. Thank you, Tamara.
And Tamara, just one quick thing. Do you know how Santa values his sleigh?
Yes.
How?
Present value.
Net present value.
Yes. You're the joke one.
So you've used that before?
Maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right. With that, let's move on to action items.
Am I muted? Motion by the Port Commission to approve a lease agreement with Aliotti Enterprises LLC for premises at 1030 C Street in Bellingham.
And it should be noted that Mr. Aliotti is in the audience.
Hi, Commissioners. For the record, Shirley McCarron, Real Estate Director, and I wanted to acknowledge that Mr. Aliotti is in the audience today and wanted to welcome him to our meeting. So you may recall last month we acquired the Romaine property, which is shaded in blue on the right-hand side of your screen. And what we're asking you to consider today is a lease with Aliotti Enterprises, LLC, which is under the managing membership of Tom Aliotti. This would be a lease agreement for a fish market and restaurant at that site. It would be a 6-year term with a right for our tenant to renew for 4 years, subject to the tenant completing the tenant improvements that he anticipates improving on the property, establishing the authorized use, and having the lease in good standing at the time of renewal. And this is consistent with really all of our port leases. A couple things we've agreed to do is put in a new floor and paint the interior of the building. Mr. Aliotti has agreed to refurbish the restrooms, install ADA access, which will be an ADA ramp into the property, installing a kitchen, cleaning and painting the exterior siding as needed, replacing signs and other necessary improvements consistent with the authorized use. He does have the right to terminate if he's unable to get a permit, because this use is a change in use, so he needs to get approval from the city of Bellingham to change the use of the property. And we believe he will be successful in that, but if he's not, he will have the right to terminate. And then the other thing is, if he determines, based on what the city requires him to do in improving the property, if he determines that it's not financially feasible, we will allow him to terminate the lease. For the first couple of years, we would lease the property for $1,300 a month, which equates to about 38 cents a square foot. And then it would go up to $1,500 a month, which would give the port a 5.9% rate of return at the initial term, and then increasing to 7% at year 3. And normally we like to have a 9% rate of return, but we think this is a really fair deal, and we want to ask the commission to approve this lease today. We have one other slide, because we're also working with Mr. Aliotti on easements that he's requesting for our property. And staff doesn't have their arms around the request yet, but we intend to come back to you to ask you to consider those easements. And Brady will describe those to you.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners. Brady Scott, I'm the senior property manager with the Port of Bellingham. Tom Aliotti has requested a couple easements, as Cheryl indicated, and it's shown here. The Aliotti, the Romanian property which he's leasing is this rectangle, and so he's asking for an easement across a corner of that, as well as a small easement across a port property on the waterfront. The easements are needed for his development of his properties in this area in conjunction with his development work with the city and the permitting requirements he's working on with them. The easements would provide ingress and egress for business as well as emergency vehicles through this triangle area, noting that there's only 13 feet between this building and the corner of the lot, so extra property there for his legal access to this area between these two buildings. And then similarly, he needs to provide emergency exits outside this building, and so needs legal access across a corner of this property as well. That's for him to allow him to proceed with the development of his property. So we're continuing, we'll be continuing to work with him on working on getting these easements set up, and we'll be coming back to the commission at a future date for your consideration as a separate action from the lease.
So with that, if you have any questions, Brady and I or Tom are happy to answer those questions. But on the floor today is really just the lease for your approval. So Brady, can you go back one slide?
Mr. Shepherd, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I think we've been over this one, and I think our team has done a good job getting this to the finish line. We're going to keep working to make the waterfront an exciting place for people to be at, so that they are looking forward to being able to go to this establishment in addition to the other things that are happening in and around this site. This is all just kind of coming together as a really exciting part of town, and I'm looking forward to this as part of the mix, and look forward to trying the food too when it's up and ready.
Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I have no questions. Just, I think it's a good deal. We've lost a similar small restaurant years back. They made a park where it was, and I'd like to see something to the same fashion. And I think that's Mr. Aliotti's intention. So good luck to Mr. Aliotti on this endeavor. And if we can help, let us help.
And my question real quick, Shirley, is just, even though they were presented in the same presentation, they're not contingent on these easements. Is that a correct statement?
That's absolutely correct. We're just asking you to take action on the lease today, and we'll come back with any easement approvals.
And it's our intent to grant those easements, as I understand it, correct?
I think so, but to be truthful, I'm not clear on it yet. And so I need to sit down with Mr. Aliotti and understand the impact on our property and the future marketability of the property. But I'm fairly certain we're going to get there.
Well, I'd like to comment on that, easement's an easement. I don't think we got to do a whole lot of digging on this. A good neighbor is a good neighbor. And in my mind, I've had to give easements across my properties. If a good neighbor needs an easement, I think they get an easement. So that's where this commissioner's on.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Aliotti, would you like to say anything? I'm going to assume that's no, although I've never heard you speechless. That would be rather unusual.
I can't seem to get it to link in here.
Oh, you're there. We can hear you.
You're here.
Oh, great.
You can see
Yeah, no, I think Shirley and I have pretty much hashed this out. My intentions are to do everything we've discussed. I think we still have some work to do on the easements, but I think we can get through that hopefully. And yeah, I'm excited, and I'm hoping we can just continue to work together and do everything that we can. COVID is an issue, but hopefully it won't be a hindrance. So that's about it for me.
Okay. Ready to vote? Carrie, would you mind?
Sure. Motion by the Port Commission to approve a lease agreement with Aliotti Enterprises LLC for premises at 1030 C Street in Bellingham.
Commissioner Shepherd?
I'm a yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is also a yes. That makes it unanimous. I wish you all could hear your voices from our end. Rob, you and Carrie, it's unique.
Was there like an echo, or what's it sound like?
Oh, it's like a horror movie.
They've been getting echoes throughout the whole meeting real bad.
Okay, we'll have
I
to
got
look
one
into
now
that.
when I speak, I can hear myself.
And they're really deep.
Okay, we will look into that because that's something new.
All right, with that, we're on to other business. Who wants to start? Commissioner Shepherd?
I had just one interest in getting an update on broadband, but I was informed by staff that they're planning to have a broadband presentation at our next meeting. So I'll just hold off until then. Rob, you had sent us a email right before the start of the meeting. Were you intending for this to be discussed during other business?
Certainly, if you guys would like to, if you all had a chance to read that, it was basically a letter from the county council acting as the health department. And it was urging the governor to kind of reconsider and be a little more fair in how he opens things up. So if you all had a chance to read that, they're asking that the city and the port also support that letter. If you don't want to act on that today, we can certainly put it on the agenda for next time.
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
see a reason to put this off.
Oh, sorry, you were having a lot of echo there, Ken.
I don't see any reason off. I think we can discuss this and move that ball.
So probably what I'd be looking for is a motion for the executive director to draft a similar letter on behalf of the Port of Bellingham to the governor.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion. I took a read of the letter, and I think many of us in Whatcom County have been kind of scratching our head and frustrated with seeing King County move forward into phase 2, but us being held back when we're making good progress here and have seen a lot of stabilization of our case, of our COVID rates here, while at the same time, slowly but somewhat steadily getting our vaccination numbers up. So I'd be happy to provide a motion that the executive director is able to follow suit with the letter that the county council approved to the governor.
I would second that motion.
I'm on board as well, Rob. Do we have any specific statistics that would shine a better light what apparently they're looking at us?
I'll have to ask the health department about that, or if Don Goldberg is on here and he knows that. I haven't been following the statistics very closely. I will tell you the county council letter was very general and more generic. I think that's probably a smart move. It keeps you from arguing about the data and just says we want to move forward.
Yeah, I would assume at some level we're here because we had those big spikes out in the county a couple weeks back. That probably is the reason.
I think the frustration, though, is, back in November, we were doing fine and we were in phase 2, but King County was doing poor. And then he put everyone back into phase 1 without regard to how we were doing. And now King County is doing fine and we're not, and we're stuck in phase 1. They're allowed to go into phase 2. So the frustration, I think, is less about arguing about the data and more about let's set out the criteria and stick to it and not move the goalposts.
Yeah, I agree. And it's been incredibly damaging.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor, Mr. President.
Okay, Mr. Briscoe, I'll move this along. All those in favor? Commissioner Shepard?
Aye.
Mr. Briscoe?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell is also an aye. All right.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. Can I ask, is this any better from an echo standpoint or same thing?
Can't hear you hard at all now, Rob.
No, it's not.
I'm still getting a lot of echo from Ken, but Rob continues to be muffled.
I can hear Michael fine, but I've got an echo when I speak, so I'm not sure what's going on.
I've got an echo when I speak.
It could be Zoom today because they were having issues earlier.
All right. Well, that was all my other business for today, Ken.
Okay. Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I have none today. I'm going to save it for another rainy day.
I'm not going to save mine. I'm concerned that the state may decide that they want to take our MATCA money. We've seen it happen in the past, and I know they're in the middle of negotiating the budget at the moment. And I would like to take a proactive stance on preserving MATCA funds for MATCA use and specifically for MATCA projects. And I would love to have this commission, all of us sign a letter at some level that encourages the legislature to leave Matka and not use those funds for anything other than cleanup activities. It's such a big part of what we're doing here. And I think it needs to continue. My fear is that if we stall any Matka actions in 2021 because of lack of money, that we may be in a position to delay projects or stop and start. I also believe that we've got some projects that are going to employ some people, and we've got a shovel-ready job there when that happens. So if it were up to me, I would have a letter that we encourage our other port commissioners to do the same, and one sent to our legislators, encouraging them to make sure Matka stays Matka.
Say, Rob, isn't that I thought, you know, we went through, Ken, we went through this, I think 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago at the WPPA when the state first shuffled all that money into the general fund and basically broke the Matka fund, and then said, well, we got to start charging more tax on the barrel per oil, whatever. They just wanted to up the ante to the users. So I think we probably got something in the file from then. And I would think that the WPPA is all over that still, I would believe, but correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Yeah, I would hope so. I just know that we've had some discussions with some legislators, and you just never know that it's not on the table, especially when there's looking for money for other projects. And it's easy to say that you're taking cleanup money and using it for something and weasel word it so that it fits, but clearly we know what Matka was designed for. And I just want to make sure that that's what it stays dedicated to. I just don't trust it in a year where the budget's going to be tight and programs are going to be numerous.
I don't trust it in a year when the budget isn't tight. Too many sticky fingers down there.
Yeah.
Well, Commissioner Briscoe.
Well, I think it's an interesting question. You know, one thing we've done well is that we've really communicated the value of Matka to our Olympia team. Whenever we talk about it, I see like heads nodding and people know what this fund is for. And when we met with Representative Ramel today, he reiterated that, you know, these Matka projects, they're in the governor's budget, they're planned to see them through. And that the big lift was done last year when that the funding mechanism was ironed out, as Commissioner Briscoe was mentioning. And so I think it's a good question. I'd like to hear our legislative affairs lead, Mr. Hogan, weigh in and if we can shop this around with our contacts at WPPA to just see the utility and make sure there's not any unintended consequences of what I see as a good effort.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Hogan, Public Affairs Administrator. Yes, I agree with all of you. I'm paranoid about our Matka money on good years and on bad years. I think we are well positioned with the money in the governor's budget, but what can happen at the last minute, you know, when they're writing the capital budget, the money can get swept. And we know that there's extreme pressures this year with COVID. We have sent communication to each of our delegation, you know, already supporting the Matka funding, but I think a letter from the three of you is a great thing to have each and every year. It can't hurt. We do have similar letters going out from the WPPA, the AWC, our different project partners, and the more folks we can send this information out to, the better. I think there's a good reason why the folks that you talk to are familiar, is because we're telling our story, showing the great things that we can do, you know, restoring the health of the land and water first and foremost, but then rebuilding our waterfront economy and the things we see down in our waterfront in Bellingham and up in Blaine, and how important it is to our marine trades and how important it is going to be moving forward with huge projects coming online at the Cornwall Avenue landfill, R.G. Haley, Blaine Harbor, the ASB with the phase 2 of Whatcom Waterway cleanup. So this is an issue that we're going to need to hit loud and hit hard for the foreseeable future. And I think the three of you do a great job when you talk to the folks at Ecology or the folks at the other elected officials. And so a letter is an easy thing to do. And I think it's good for the file and good to just keep reiterating the importance. So
quite frankly, Mr. Hogan, I'm not as afraid of our people because they live this. You know, they see it every day because they live here or they live in the area and they've seen what we've done. I'm more worried about the temptation from somewhere else to say, why does Bellingham need that? You know, and I don't know how to prevent that. I just don't get caught up in that negotiation.
Absolutely. And we've really tried to partner with like Port of Seattle, for example, that has huge cleanup needs coming on the Duwamish Waterway. They also have well-positioned legislators, same in Everett, same in Tacoma, as well as profiling projects on the eastern side of the state. So it's not just a Puget Sound issue. And, you know, really, that's where the rubber meets the road down in Olympia is making sure we know what legislators are on that, on the capital budget committees, and we know that they're aware of projects and the value in their communities. And so it is important to profile our projects, but it's also important to work with WPPA, the Association of Washington Cities and Counties, as well as profile specific projects. And you know, there's thousands of cleanup sites throughout the state. And so there's examples to draw on from, you know, Yakima to Vancouver, Washington. And so, you know, it's a little bit of strategy involved, but it just really emphasizing statewide the importance of that fund. And one of our messages is it's the most powerful economic redevelopment tool we have as ports. And that's especially critical now with COVID. And, you know, we're getting companies like All American Marine that are bringing and expanding on a property that was formerly contaminated instead of moving to South Carolina. And that's the power of that MOTCA fund, the power in our community, the power in these other communities, and, you know, why it's, you know, a radar for us, and we're watching it very closely.
Well, go ahead.
One message that kind of escapes, and maybe it's in a different form, is that irregardless of whether the sites in North Washington, Eastern Washington, Western Washington, or Southern Washington, we have more sites that need to be cleaned up than we have money by far. And the MOTCA money needs to stay intact so over time we can get all of the projects done wherever they are. It doesn't need to be derailed because somebody's got a special agenda they want to get money for. It's not about any particular spot in the state. It's about the whole state, and that's what the money's intended for. It's not intended for the general fund.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And the legislature requires Ecology to have a 10-year financing plan that's put out every other year that shows what their 10-year need on the fund is. And so it's close to $1 billion over the next decade. And so even though there's in the governor's budget, there's $75 million for cleanup sites, you know, and that this is on a good year, multiply that by 10 and you're still underfunding the account. So yeah, over the long term, there's thousands of sites throughout the state of Washington, great benefits for our communities. And we need to hit those messages, but you're exactly right.
And for me, just from an economic development standpoint, there's a lot of missed opportunity cost by having contaminated sites on the waterfront. First of all, you don't get to use that site until it's cleaned up. But secondly, it's a stain on the community. The sooner we can get that done, I think the better we are going to be at recruiting people to some new locations along the waterfront. I mean, the goal here is to try to capture people who are moving out of gentrified and displaced areas and put them to work on our waterfront. So it's a big deal to me to make sure that we free up that space as soon as possible. That's all.
Yeah, you look at the Whatcom Waterway, and with the new, of course, the cleanup in the inner waterway and as part of phase 1, but the new marine trades infrastructure on the north side of the waterway, and how that's supporting a our marine trades area with our tissue warehouse full and the businesses, finally doing well. And then on the south side where you have, the new Waypoint Park Beach with habitat restoration and public access and supporting, all the businesses that want to come down there and all these community objectives. So, and that's just, one small part of our waterfront. We've got a lot more to go, but yeah.
So Mike, do you think this needs a legislative fix and is that a legislative tool in the tool belt to put a lock on the fund that money comes in, money stays for MACA purposes only, or is that not how that fund is ever going to function?
Let me jump in on that
we
one.
spent a lot of time talking about that with different lobbyists, lawyers, other ports, talking about how great it would be to protect that fund and use it only, for cleanup. Unfortunately, with the way the money gets allocated and appropriated, there's no good way to do that. So, I would say we're in a good position with the changes that were made to the account last year, and changing it to the volume of the price on the volume of oil and all the other changes they made in the different allocations. But when it comes down to it, at the last minute is where you're in the biggest danger of having that money stripped and taken to somewhere else. And it really helps so to have that, everyone keeping their eye on it and, putting the stories like the Ports Association does and everyone else. So that's what we'll continue to do.
We need to be a little bit forward looking as we go through that too, because the volume of gasoline being shipped out of these locations is more than likely going to go down over the next decade or two, as we become less reliant on oil products. And if we're solely dependent on MACA funds coming from that industry, then I think we're selling ourselves a little bit short. Right, that's all I had for other business. We've got another public comment period in about 40 minutes. You want to recess, and I think if it's okay with you guys, I think just the commissioners come back for that public comment.
Maybe have one thing, Ken, that I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I'd like to bring it up.
Is it a half-hour discussion?
It could be. Recently we all know about the mess that was in front of City Hall and the library and this and that, and they moved it. And I'm sure that my fellow commissioners got some emails about where they moved it to, as well as I did. And some of the emails I read most of the emails I read were pretty disturbing. At the choices made by city officials, whomever they may be, and maybe Michael can enlighten me on who makes a decision. Maybe I don't speak with the folks at city very often for reasons that are well known. They don't like to talk to me, I guess. But decisions are starting to be made with this homeless camp, and I'll just refer no other word as mess. It's a mess. The whole thing's a mess. And it's starting to seriously there's economic impact of what's going on with the increase in homeless and the way they're moving around the businesses and centering things in downtown. And Bellingham lies within Whatcom County, which is our economic development sector for the Port of Bellingham. And I'm starting to see a lot of things going sideways and hearing a lot of things going wrong. I don't know at what point it's going to get done, but somebody needs to talk to the great governor, so they think of this state, that his office, and I believe it was back in the era of Dixie Lee Ray, Governor Dixie Lee Ray, dismantled our mental health institutions and just kind of threw everybody out the door to fend for themselves and let the mayors of our cities and small towns worry about it. As long as we're on the agenda of writing a letter, I think sooner or later, somebody that's being impacted by this needs to send a clear message to governor that it's about time they reinstituted those mental institutions. You know, there was a complaint that it cost too much money at that time. The state couldn't afford it. So all the state did was pass it on to the cities and towns of the state of Washington so that those people could pay for it there and they didn't have to worry about it.
There's another component to that, Bobby, that historically, so back in the late 1970s, and you're old enough to remember that. Michael, you're not. But the ACLU sued to have institutions free people who were institutionalized. They felt that it was a violation of their civil rights to be institutionalized. And that went for developmentally disabled people as well as mental institutions. I mean, I think you're old enough to remember when we had those institutions and they were full and you knew where they were. And so you can't involuntarily put somebody in an institution any longer based on a ACLU lawsuit. As much as, and I wasn't in Washington for Dixie. What was her last name? Lee Ray. It sounds like a movie character. But anyway, I wasn't here for her, but I do know that it was a nationwide movement. And by 1980, it was required by the federal government to have all institutions closed based on the ACLU suit. So we don't have the ability to institutionalize somebody without them acquiescing.
Well, just maybe it needs to be set up a little differently than it was.
It does.
But it needs to be moved towards, because these people that they're being called homeless, half of them can't take care of themselves.
No, and we keep trying to tackle the problem as one big problem.
Can't do that.
You've got to take it apart. You've got to pull it apart from its components, because you've got addiction components, you've got mentally ill components, you've got straight out economic components, and each one needs to be addressed separately. And trying to do it as a single fixed solution is never going to work.
No, and it never ceases to amaze me that can't see it in my backyard type of thing is the approach that our government is taking here with, okay, we're going to move it out from in front of the mayor's office over where the schools are at and the neighborhoods are at. And you've got young children that are probably going to get accosted trying to, I mean, we've all tried to walk past some of these folks and they get all goofy. And if you don't want to give them money or you don't want to give them food or you just want to walk on your way, they want to grab you and spin you around. And I mean, I don't know if we can help the government of the city of Bellingham figure something out, or Whatcom County, but something's going to have to be done here pretty soon, or you're going to have violence in the streets.
Yeah,
because too many parents are going to think kindly of having a camp drop next door to them and having their child harmed in some manner or other. Somebody's going to get pretty violent.
Yeah, and for my understanding, when the city moved the camp in front of City Hall and disbanded that, the city did not actively move the camp to its new location at Civic Field. The camp went there. And so it's my understanding that it's the city's belief that that is an unpermitted location and it is not a city approved location or one that the city intends to support. And so that's a challenge for the city and the mayor to reconcile at this point. But you know, on Saturday, I rode over there and I looked at the site, and then I went up and it's a rough looking situation there. It's pretty messy. It doesn't look very comfortable. It doesn't look like a good place to be. Then I went up the street and I spoke with the management at the Swift Haven. Swift Haven is the new city approved site for tiny homes that's managed by Homes Now. And there's about 25 or so tiny homes there. The county bought them. They were made in Ferndale by Whatcom County New Business. And I tell you, I was just so impressed with how those were managed. The office has video screens that keep a video feed on every individual unit to ensure that things are safe and being secure. It was neat and clean and tidy. People were respectful, and the volunteers that were managing it were just really nice individuals. So it gave me a lot of hope about that model, and that's the model I hope that the city can find an operator to replicate on the property that we provided use of at the end of last year. So this is going to come up again in we have a meeting on Friday for the homeless strategies work group again, and I will certainly bring these comments forward. I think everybody's gotten the same emails, and it's an important piece of feedback to bring in. And I think that one of the struggles is all this time that the camp has happened in front of City Hall, there has been space at base camp. And base camp is an available shelter. Over the past 2 weeks, while there was cold weather, Christ the King Church worked with the management at base camp to open the drop-in center on Holly Street, so that increased the capacity even more. And it's a challenge for local government to respond to a quickly moving target if the assumption is that shelters are no longer good enough for supporting this needs of this population, and everyone needs to be in a tiny home or something else. That's a big lift, and we're just not there yet. I think we're making progress towards providing as many options and choices as possible, but it's a big lift to have a tiny home or some other equivalent for every person in that sheltering situation. So
on that note, I'm particularly disturbed that there was at least 90 beds in base camp when they made that move, and they weren't relocated to base camp. And I think the perception inside those communities is absolutely wrong about what's going on in some of those places, and they feed on each other. And I would say the last thing is, I'm really tired of political activists using those communities as pawns to further their political agenda. That is repugnant to me. They're using the most vulnerable in our society as pawns to further an objective, and I can't stomach that.
Yeah, those are the people that want to help everybody, but they want to use everybody to help everybody. It's kind of a...
I'm sure that made sense in your head.
Well, at some point in time, if you look at our history, nothing has ever been achieved without making people adhere to rules. And basically what it boils down to with your base camp and these places, those folks don't want to go there because there's some rules that they will have to abide by. So, I kind of yearn for the 50s when, okay, if you couldn't follow the rules in the city limits, okay, we'll put you in a squad car, we'll give you $10 and we'll take you to the county line. Have a nice day. So at some point in time, some city official, some county official, or officials put together are going to have to say, hey, we got to have some rules these people have to follow if they want to be in our county. Now, we don't mind helping them. We don't mind, we put up places for them to stay. But damn it, it's about time that the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens can feel safe in their homes and walking down the street of their town or around in their county without being accosted by somebody that apparently has more rights than they do and pays no taxes to speak of and is living off the other people's taxes, which I don't have a problem with helping people. But I do have a problem with helping people who throw crap in my face when you're helping. That I have a problem with, and that's what's going on. And nobody wants to step up and draw the hard line because politically you're going to be attacked. I mean, it's just going to, you got these groups that are running around with nothing better to do now to find out where somebody's going to be moved from, or maybe they feel their rights are going to be infringed on, and infringe on everybody else's right and destroy public property. So, I mean, it's gotten absolutely ridiculous, but nobody wants to play hardball with these folks that, hey, you play by the rules or you leave town. It's pretty simple in my book. You either play by the rules or you leave town. We'll feed you, we'll help you, we'll make you warm, but you got rules you have to abide by. And if you can't do that, then you're going to have to get on the bus or bend your thumb out and leave and go to the next county where maybe they'll put up with you. But until they start doing that, the mess is going to get worse. And as you said, Ken, you have to divide the sectors up. You know, alcohols or drug abuse people, you got the mental people that are just struggling, and you've got people that are getting into these tiny homes. They're just down and out and they're trying to put their life back together. And those are the people Michael spoke to that you can see that are appreciating that and doing it, but you can't put them all together. And everybody keeps wanting to put them all in the same room, and it will never work. That's why a lot of the people don't want to go to the centers, because they don't want to be with other certain types of people. So I don't have the answers. I got a few pointers. I don't know if they're answers, but maybe I get in trouble for them. I don't know. But sooner or later, somebody's got to just step out there and say, hey, look, this isn't working. We need to redefine what's right and wrong here. And here's the rules. That's where
I don't see any action by the port on this, but Michael, I do think you can take that conversation back to your group.
Yeah, it will be a robust conversation, I'm sure, on Friday. It's going to be a busy agenda, and there's always, I'll make sure and report in. Thanks.
You know, and Michael, I don't mind helping people. I really don't. I've helped people all my life.
Sure.
You know, I've given up my own stuff to help people that need it. But you know what? You like to see something in return, and that'd be okay. Fit into the rest of the society around here and at least try.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. My last thing is, Elizabeth, we have a new employee, I understand.
I didn't hear you. What was that?
So Rob, I can.
Hi, yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I do have a new employee, and she's watching her first exposure to our commission meetings. So Christina Gupa is our new human resources generalist. She started yesterday, and we are figuring out how to do orientation and training virtually for human resources, which is very difficult because we like to be face-to-face with people. But she is here. She'll be in the building tomorrow. She's got some in-person meetings to meet with folks and go through some more training. And we're going to do this kind of in the office sometimes and remote sometimes.
Well, welcome. Just know there's no training to prepare you for a Bobby Briscoe. Just saying.
That's right. Welcome. I am what I am, and that's what I am.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And welcome to the port.
Appreciate
All right.
that.
Shall we take a recess and come back at 5:30?
Sounds good.
I would say it should just be the commissioners that want to show, and the rest of the staff should go.
Do we really believe there's a need?
Well, at least one of us needs to show up just to make sure.
I'll take on that.
Yeah, I'll be here.
I'll be there for the comment.
All right. What time?
5:30, 20 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
See you then.
Thanks.
All righty.
Where's Frank hiding at?
I think he's traveling somewhere around the Midwest and Arizona and Kansas and what else he's doing these days.
Huh?
Hey,
Is
can
he
you
in a
guys hear
motorhome
us?
traveling around or just traveling around?
I think he's driving. I think he's staying in Arizona for a while, and then he went up to his granddaughter's baptism
Oh,
in
okay.
Kansas. And then he's back to Arizona and just out and about, gallivanting around.
Can you guys hear us
Well,
at
that's
all?
a good thing.
Testing, testing. Can you hear us? John, Bobby, can you hear us?
Yes.
Be real quiet, Rob.
How about now? Is that any better?
Not a whole bunch. Can you hear him, John?
I can hear marginally better, but still very quiet.
Anything now?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right, we're still messing around here. Hopefully that's better.
Yeah, you're much clearer.
Weird.
I notice my echo's gone on this end now too.
Yeah, we're getting there piece by piece.
So is mine.
Nice, John. Who invited the lawyer? Why don't you say something?
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it's a bit muffled.
It's muffled.
I can hear you, Karen.
I mean, I can turn up the mic. Is that better? No.
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm staying neutral. I'm Switzerland.
Oh, it looks like maybe Tom or Jim want to make a comment at 5:30. We're going to reconvene the port meeting for February 2nd. Jim, got anything for us?
Yeah, briefly, thank you, Commissioner Bell, for bringing up Matka. So we're with, I'm sorry, Working Waterfront Coalition. We're with you there. We'll write a letter. Let us know what else you can do. Keeping those funds going in the right direction is critical for this county, and we're with you, and thank you.
Would appreciate a letter. That would help. Thank you. Anyone else have a comment? Hearing none. Gentlemen, meeting adjourned.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim.
See you next time. All right. We made it through it.